All right, good evening, everyone. It looks like I'm the only one here right now. That's okay. We're going to go through a quick presentation. I won't keep you here that long since I'm the only one here. I got held up a little bit earlier today with some Wi-Fi issues, but I'm back on pretty much on time right now. So I've caught up with myself here, and I did want to go over, well, there's several things this week that I'd like to go over, but we'd be here for like 9 hours. And obviously I'm not going to do that to you, or myself for that matter, but I do want to talk about a couple of things, maybe just one, we'll see, that really are is kind of a passion of mine, and I think will impact or have impacted or at least interest at least most of you. This week we're talking about getting into the little bit further down the line with from going from a baby, an infant, and basically just an embryo and a fetus and everything like that. And now we're into early childhood, looking at the social and emotional development. We also look at the cognitive and physical development as well. As I said, we will never have time to get through all of it. This PowerPoint presentation alone is 44 slides. It's one thing to zip through it on your own, and I'm sure you're doing that. I certainly hope so. It's a great resource for you, and kind of an expectation that you go through these. But I just want to hit on some of the components, which is something I'm passionate about, which is parenting. Discipline, parenting styles, such as that. So before I get started, though, I do want to mention to you that right now we're finishing up week 2. Essentially, here it is Sunday night. By the time you watch this video, we might be into week 3. So finishing up week 2 means that we are 1/3 finished with the class, 33 1/3% finished with the class. So time stands still for no man, and time marches on. So here we are. You've been doing a pretty good job keeping up with your assignments. I definitely appreciate that, and not missing anything. I'm going to start grading this week's assignments tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, and hopefully get those to you by Tuesday or at the latest Wednesday, God willing. I know you like to keep track of your grades and how you're doing, especially in an accelerated course. So next time we meet on the Zoom room, presumably will be a week from tonight. I'm going to have those be our regular meetings. And, that means we'll be 50% finished with the course. We'll be on the other side at that point. So going into week 4. So I hope you're enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying everything you're doing, especially, well, everything. I was going to mention especially your developmental biographies, if you will, which is one of the best exercises of any college course that you may do. So anyway, just keep up the good work. You've impressed me, and hopefully, like I said, you're enjoying each other, and I appreciate the way you esteem each other in the course room in your discussions, and build each other up with positivity, and point out your differences without obviously being negative or anything like that, which is a real plus. So we're going to look at child rearing and different kinds of interaction. We have warm parents and cold parents. Warm parents typically are more affectionate. Essentially, that's what it means to be warm. They're more affectionate. Cold parents, they may not enjoy it that much. Maybe they're not. So that's just not what their cup of tea is, if you will. So my daughter is just texting me that she got back to college. Okay. All right, that's important. Speaking of child rearing, my daughter's 23, no longer a child, but she was here today. She drove up from where she goes to graduate school, and she just texted us, my wife, myself, as well as her brother, to let us know that she made it back to the campus. So very impressed with her. Anyway, be that as it may. So we're going to go ahead and look at a few more things just in terms of, I want to look at the different parenting styles. I want to get back to that. Okay, so we have, typically the experts agree, there are 4 parenting styles. And authoritative is certainly one of them. Authoritarian is another. Permissive is, they call it permissive indulgent, or permissive uninvolved, if you will, or not uninvolved necessarily, but permissive inconsistent is the word I'm looking for. But permissive is typically in there. And then the 4th one is rejecting or neglecting. Um, so those are the 4 styles. So you may have heard these before, but one of the things I want to point out with this is, yeah, typically you can identify each home that has parents with children under essentially one of these 4 styles. That's not to say that they are that way 100% of the time. It means they are that way most of the time. That is generally their approach. There are times when someone who is permissive may be authoritarian, but that's not their go-to. But it may happen sometimes, and they're not consistent with it. The other thing the other adjective that goes along with permissive is inconsistent, which is a big problem. So let's go through these. I'm going to start with number 2, the authoritarian. That's the kind of parent that is very strict, has very stringent rules that they do not waver from. There's a lot of components that go with this. They punish severely when the rules are broken. They're kind of like, do this because I said so. Don't ask me why. A lot of times, and this isn't the best parenting style. There are some parts of it that are worse or better than others. One of the downfalls that I see with this when parents have this style and they're kind of dysfunctional with it is they neglect to even explain the rules to the kids, not even like get feedback or anything like that from the kids. Anyway, they just expect sometimes kids to know, and then when kids break a rule or maybe they haven't even established the rule in their mind, the parents, but the kids do something wrong, there's severe punishments and the presumption that you should have known better. And oftentimes there's room for that, but oftentimes that's not the best either. So that's the authoritarian parent. They're typically not that warm parent. They're typically they parent out of fear a lot of times. So yeah, that's not the best. The next is the rejecting or neglecting. What this and you may have seen this. I recall there's a kid, a boy that I went to high school with, and he was friends of ours and everything. But looking back on it, I didn't realize that at the time. I knew there was something kind of funny about his household, but looking back on it, I can see that his parents were rejecting or neglecting. Not rejecting in the way like, ooh, get away from me necessarily, although it could be that. They just don't set up any rules. They don't actively parent the child. That's kind of what it means. They don't have expectations. There is no bedtime set, so whatever time the kid goes to bed, it doesn't really matter. And even some parents don't set up bedtime, and then the kids start going to bed late, and they say, oh, we got to have a bedtime. The neglecting or rejecting parent doesn't really say one way or the other. The kid goes to bed at 11, the kid goes to bed at 11. The kid goes to bed at 7, the kid goes to bed at 7. It doesn't really doesn't really impact them. What time do they come home? Where should they go? Do they do their homework? Do the parents sign the planner? Typically, these are the parents that don't sign school planners or come to parent conferences or come to parent-teacher nights, those kind of things. They're just not involved. They're uninvolved with their child. So that obviously is not a good parenting style, typically, especially if the child is needy, if you will. The next is the permissive. Now, the permissive parent or indulgent parent, they kind of group those together here in this lecture. They will indulge the child. They will buy them whatever they want. They will say yes to whatever request the child makes. That's the extreme. The other sort of permissive part of it is this. They will set up some rules. Let's say a bedtime is going to be 8:30, but then they don't enforce that rule. They will set a curfew, but there's no consequence when the child breaks the curfew. Sometimes it's ignored. Sometimes they just feel sorry for the child or whatever. The child plays on their heartstrings, and there's no consequence. The child brings home bad grades or gets in trouble at school. They come and defend the child. They don't try to correct the child. They don't try to teach the child. And it's not about punishment. It's about discipline, which is about teaching. So that, of all the parenting styles, oh, the other one that goes under this umbrella too is when you have the two parents and one tries to establish rules and hold the child to rules, and the other parent always forgives the child and lets the child break the rules. A lot of times you'll see this with a child, and one parent or the other will say, okay, this is the way it is. If you don't do it this way, there's going to be consequences. The child doesn't do it that way. Mom or dad, whoever it is, starts to dole out the consequences. The other parent intervenes and excuses the child, or the other parent, the child will subsequently go to the other parent and not have to follow through with the other consequences. Of all the parenting styles, this one, number 3, permissive indulgent, is the worst, without question. The other two that I've mentioned so far are not good, but this one is the worst. Why do I say that? Well, research says that, and this is why. Because these children grow up thinking that the rules don't apply to them. These are the kids who get so upset when they actually have to sort of pay a consequence at school or on their sports team, or if they're at someone else's house and all the kids have to, get out of the pool or whatever the case is because there's too much horseplay. They're the ones who just don't think it's fair because they've been taught that the rules don't apply to them. They've been taught that there are rules, but they don't mean anything. I'll give you an example as an adult. If ever I've been in a room given this talk with, 10 adults or 15 or 30, and I ask the question, how many people here, who here has ever gotten a speeding ticket? And, some people will sheepishly raise their hand. I raise my hand. I've gotten a speeding ticket before. And typically, when you talk to adults, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but typically, talking to adults who've got a speeding ticket, they always think that it is not fair. The reason is this is kind of an extension of that permissive parenting by the police and the laws in society. I'm not saying the people who got speeding tickets were raised in a permissive household. The point I'm making is this. We don't think speeding tickets are fair because people speed all the time. We speed all the time and we don't get a ticket for it. I don't know where you live. I live in South Florida. I drive on 95. I try and drive as safe because I want to be safe. I want to live. I want to contribute to society. But now they've raised the speed limit on I-90, Interstate 95 a little bit. So people, okay. But I mean, on those left lanes, people are doing 85, 90 miles an hour. The speed limit's 65. In the morning, people are doing 85, 90 miles an hour. And I've seen them pass police officers. Okay, so naturally, people think that the speeding limit doesn't really matter, does it, right? I mean, that's what you're going to think. You see this happen all the time. So when you actually do get a speeding ticket, you can see why you would feel, oh, I've been unjustly accused, or I'm being unjustly punished because everyone speeds. So along that kind of is that permissive indulgent mentality. So I just point that out so that you can relate to it. Okay, the best parenting style is the authoritative. The authoritative parenting style does have rules, does have boundaries, does have expectations for the children. However, they're not stringent. They're fair. The children are explained that these are the rules, and they also are. It's also explained to the children that this is why we have these rules. Yes, you must go to bed at 8:30. Well, the reason is because you need to get sleep in order to grow, in order to be healthy, in order to learn. This is the reason that we have bedtime. Now, the authoritative parents have those rules. If the rules are broken, there's going to be a consequence, but the consequence is not severe. The consequence tends to match the infraction in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? Severeness, if you will. Okay, so if little children 8, 9 years old, and this is the age that we're talking about, if they have to be in their yard or in the house, let's say in the summertime, they're outside playing on the street, riding their bike, playing ball, but they must be inside at 7 o'clock, and they come in at 7:05, you don't blow your stack. You don't start throwing things around the room and yelling and screaming and you know and calling the kid names and all these kind of things. Let me make sure I'm recording this. Come on, there we go. Okay, yes, I'm recording. Okay, you know, and spank the child. Okay, that's a minor infraction. You say, listen, you came a little late today. Let's make sure that this doesn't happen again. Now, if it's a continual problem, yeah, there's going to be a consequence. Okay, so listen, it seems that you're having a hard time getting here by 7 o'clock. You come at 7:05. This is like the third day in a row. I understand it's only 5 minutes, but that's 3 times. The issue is not that it's 5 minutes. It's that it's 3 times you have not followed the rule. So guess what? Starting tomorrow until further notice, I'm going to bring your curfew now is now 5 minutes earlier. Okay, and if that is broken, there's going to be a more severe consequence. Now, hopefully, the child gets the message and comes home earlier and gets there at 6:55. Okay, you've done that for a week now. I think maybe that I can trust you to stay out till 7 o'clock. If not, then there's going to be another severe consequence. There's going to be not going out, those kind of things. The other things in terms of matching the consequence in terms of severity is logically. For instance, let's say the child comes home late. Let's say the child comes home 15 minutes late. Okay, that's gonna be something that we have to have a consequence for. So, what do? Do I spank the child? You know, I'm not a fan of corporal punishment. I won't get into that too much now. It's not illegal as long as it's not beating someone. Typically, though, I'll touch on a little bit. There are better ways than corporal punishment. I know a lot of students tell me, and I tell you, I mentioned, yeah, I got spanked when I was a little boy, and I turned out just fine. But there are better ways. And the other thing is, sometimes spankings are not the best way. I've seen parents spank out of anger. That's never a good idea. Anyway, okay, so the child comes home 15 minutes late. We could say, okay, no dessert. Or we could say, since you were 15 minutes late tonight, you must come home 15 minutes early tomorrow. See, that's more logical, isn't it? He took 15 minutes of time, or she took 15 minutes of extra time. Now tomorrow they lose 15 minutes of playtime. So it resonates in their mind that there's a reason for this, and there's more of a connection. Losing dessert is not the worst thing in the world. It might work, but there's not that same connectivity, right? Not that same connectivity. I'll share a story. A professor of mine in graduate school tells a story. He lived on a farm when he was a kid, and they used to go swimming in this. It's a very deep, like a well, big enough, they could swim back and forth. You know, maybe 10 or 12 feet across or whatever. I guess as he described it, and he got permission. Him and his cousins and brothers or whatever got permission to go swimming after they finished their chores on the farm. He grew up on a farm, and that's where they were supposed to be. And they went and they had like goggles and flippers and masks, you know, things like that. I'm not sure they had the goggles and towels there. And they decided that they were going to change their mind and not go swimming. They were going to go through the woods and go somewhere else. So they left their goggles there on the rocks and went out exploring. Well, they were late. So the parents came looking for them. And they got to the well where the kids were supposed to be, and all they saw were the goggles. Now, you can imagine these kids, he was young at the time. He explains he was probably around the age we're studying now. They were distraught, thinking that the kids had drowned. And it was a very deep well, like I said. They did go looking for them before they started, and they found them. And the consequence was that they would not go swimming for quite some time. And they would not be allowed far away from the house for quite some time. And they could have spanked them. They could have done many, many things, but they took away that well which the kids desired. And when he told this story, he was probably 65 or 70 years old, and that was a long time ago. But he shared that story to accentuate the effectiveness of natural consequences. The other thing with authoritative parents is, you know, the rules, you can bend them sometimes. I'll share a personal story. When my kids were very small, bedtime was 8:30 for them. And my daughter was very happy to do that. She was a rule follower and was happy to know, we set the rules so she could follow it. My son is more adventurous, and I do recall that he came to me one time and said, "Can I stay up late? I don't want to go to bed at 8:30. I said, why do you want to stay up? I just want to stay up later." Okay. Well, in my mind, I'm trying to look cool, but I'm thinking, what is he going to ask for? Is he going to want to stay up to 11 o'clock? Is this going to be a trend? What's going to happen? So by the grace of God, I said to him, "Well, how much later?" He said, 15 minutes. Okay, you know what? Certainly. You know what? Thank you for asking nicely. I will allow you to stay up an extra 15 minutes tonight just because you want to. That's fair enough. Now, understand though, tomorrow night, bedtime is still 8:30, and I expect tomorrow night you'll be in bed at 8:30. That's the rules. So I will agree to this with the understanding that we're going to do our regular routine. We're going to get ready for bed. We're going to pray. You can have that extra 15 minutes awake for watching a little TV, whatever it is you want to do, reading a book. However, since I'm also giving you this, I expect at that point for you to go ahead and climb into bed, lights off. He was about 8 or 9 years old, probably 7 or 8, I guess, and cover up, which he did. My wife and I subsequently went in there to, kiss him goodnight and whatnot and thank him for, getting himself to bed. So it showed responsibility. I have other parenting stories that aren't as successful, but I did want to share that with you. So anyway, those are the 4 parenting styles. I did want to touch on that. I'm not going to keep any much longer. I'm grateful for each of you. I pray for each of you. I pray for anyone who may have been in the path of the storm that went through northern Florida. I'm in southern Florida. I'm okay. I have relatives up there, but they're okay. So pray for those who we might even know, and I pray for you and your family. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to stop the screen share and move on. I look forward to your interactions in the coming week. All the best.